Hey Bart, hi Joe.
Hey, how you doing, Prakash, Joe?
Hello, both.
Really good, really good. Now, we're going to start talking about something that's very close to my heart, the value map. What
Yeah.
is it?
Oh, so value map goes back many years. Value pyramid, value map, value stack. It's had different iterations, and many of the best leaders I know and sellers that I know, technical sellers, all use this as an anchor. It's without question an anchor point for any sales process or any sales campaign that we're on. And it's a credibility builder because it's a tool that drives us to go research certain categories and prep for a valuable conversation with a buyer. That's, I mean, it's the ultimate anchor for every engagement to be viewed as a professional.
Right. And would you say that
That's
the value map is where um, the vendor aligns its solutions along with the customer's problems, so that you're actually outlining, like, it's not talking about the product, it's talking about, hey, this is actually from our understanding of the biggest challenges that you're facing. This is how the potential value of the solution aligns up with those two things.
Yeah. Yeah, if I think about it in the most fundamental terms, it's a corporate objective, a strategy, initiatives which are typically funded that align to that strategy and those objectives. And then there's challenges of some sort. And depending on the industry that you're selling into, if you're selling in SaaS high tech, as an example, there's technical challenges that prevent the aforementioned categories from being achievable. Hopefully, your offering or your solution can solve some of those technical challenges, and now you have a narrative. You're able to have an intelligent conversation relative to those important aspects of the prospect you're selling to.
Just curious, Prakash, from your perspective, how does the value map differ from a business case, or is there a difference?
I think the business case can be seated as a part of the value map because what the value map points to are the things that are most important to that organization. You're trying to align what you do in the market with what they need. And I think what came out of that conversation, which was quite interesting, is not just about the opportunity for which you might have a specific business case, but this is really aligning the value of the seller and the consumer at an organizational level as well. So you're building a greater affinity with the account as well as the value of the solutions within it that you're providing.
Yeah. So I remember having this debate. Goes back 20 years. We were in a conference room. It was BMC software, and we were debating. It was a value pyramid, is what we called it back then. And same categories: corporate objective, strategy, initiatives that are funded, technical challenges that got in the way of the aforementioned. Usually, you would get this data manually from a 10K, 10Q online research. Now there's tools that do it, which is fine. But you still have to internalize the data. You have to become solution oriented in the way you discuss that data with your buyer or your prospect or your potential champion as you're trying to find a potential champion. And it what it does is it categorizes your information, and then it allows you to expand and expand and expand on that information as you learn more and as they put their hands on the value map, your prospect and or potential buyers. And the ultimate gift is it gives you credibility as a seller. That's the gift. And everyone wants to come in and use modern technology today, whether it's AI to help generate pitches or sequences for outreach. None of it is personal, and it's terrible. And none of us that are executive buyers want that noise. We want someone that generally, we have a warm introduction to them. They do their homework. They align with what's important to me as a buyer. They narrate and they help me understand how they're going to solve my problems. And the value map is one of those tools that does that. If you do it right, it becomes the anchor of the sales campaign, becomes the anchor of your business case, Joe, that you mentioned, and it becomes the grounding mechanism of your entire sales campaign, where you just keep expanding upon it based on what you learn. the debate that I referenced was, oh, you do a value map, but then you don't use it anymore. You just want to have the categories and understand who you're selling to. No, you have to give it to them. You have to present it to them. You have to get their buy-in on it, and their information from their collaborating with you into that value map, because it travels with your opportunity throughout the relationship and the life cycle of the entire account relationship. So super valuable.
Joe, in your experience, based upon what Bart has said, you must have seen and also got involved in creating a number of value maps, and I imagine not all of them are equal. Some are better than others. Anything that Bart said that you just wanted to reinforce in terms of what makes a great value map for you as the supplier, but also for the customer?
It actually provides to expand on what Bart's saying. It provides a foundation for the entire relationship. It also integrates what the customer has told you is important to them, and what I mentioned before about what your solution is going to address inside the organization. And it includes the other parts of the pyramid, right? Who's involved, how they're going to be involved, what cross-functional relationships are going to be involved. Are there going to be integrations from different departments? Are there going to be integrations from the solution, whether it's professional services or not? And so it's really, when I say it's the foundation, because it encompasses the entire project and provides a clear understanding for both the customer, which is the most important part of the relationship, but also the vendor, because the vendor plays an equal part in the outcome, right? In finding the cure for whatever ails the prospect, right? Because they're coming to you with something that there's a problem they're aware of, they don't know how to address. They know they have a problem, they don't know what it is, so they can't address it. Or the most difficult one is where they don't believe they have a problem. So the value map ties together each segment of those. So the first one is, of course, articulating what the problem is, and then so on down the chain. So that's where I think that I've seen it provide the best across all of the opportunities I've worked in my life, and several of them are flashing through my memory right now.
The most prominent memory for me is HCA out of Nashville, Tennessee, and I tell the story often. We created a value map. I was a business seller. I was not a technical seller. And at BMC, when we acquired Remedy, my technical seller was Dave Borsch. BMC had hundreds of products, so it was very difficult to understand technically how they all worked. But we could solve a lot of problems. And in the value map was the beacon, or it was the anchor. I presented it at every meeting over 3 years, literally, and it kept growing and growing and growing, because every time a new buyer or a new division or a new organization got their hands on it, it would evolve. They would create their own. It really became a pattern recognition process. Mm-hmm. Oh, this is where we fit the problem that we're trying to solve. Here's how the technology that we're talking about solves to it. Here's the initiative that's aligned with and why it's important to us. It was pure credibility, and they knew it was coming in every meeting. So therefore, they endured and they believed in it, and it turned into millions and millions of dollars in revenue over 3 years, north of $20 million in revenue in bookings, all based on rallying around the anchor of understanding the buyer and their business, and then mapping solutions to it via the value map or that process.
So a question to you both. One of the things that I've struggled with is that this document, as you say, is a real anchor, but with the number of people that are invested in it, the number of individual conversations, the moving parts in today's businesses, that they've increased so much, even over the last 5-10 years. I personally find it really difficult to keep on top of that whole process if I use like traditional methods.
Yeah.
What's the guidance that you'd give?
Well, I can. It depends on the organization, right? Because you could have manufacturing, you could have healthcare, you could have government commercial, you could have any vertical that you're really working with. And I think one of the most important parts of making sure that the value map aligns and stays current and up to date, because things are changing across as you bring in more and more departments across an organization, is to develop a champion within that business. So if you have a champion developed, and that means someone that represents you while you're not there in the organization. You think about aspects of that. Are they what really identifies a good champion? If I'm going to kind of move into that talk track, is someone that's hired, fired, or measured, right? That by the success of the campaign, and that means from identifying a vendor, making sure that the vendor's solution from at least initial research aligns with the challenges that they're facing. And so this person has a vested stake in the success of your organization within their organization. And it's not only for them as an individual, but because they are going to be hired, fired, measured by the actual success of the engagement, whether it's with your company or another one, they have the success of the overall project means a large impact on their organization, right? And them personally, they have skin in the game, and so they'll be able to articulate to you how the value map continues to evolve within the organization, what changes you might make, what changes they need to make, because it is a mutual document. It's not successful if you're doing it on your own, which also aligns with something else that's very important, which is the mutual sequence of events, which we can talk about in a few minutes. But those two kind of documents, you need a champion in order to make sure that everything you're saying is accurate, because you're not always going to be speaking with an individual, and you're not always going to understand how their organization works and how they go to market and what their product necessarily does, because you're not a subject matter expert, but that champion is.
Yeah. So great. I want to hinge on a point, Joe, that you made. We're trying to find champions. We have to build them up, and then we have to test them. So they have to understand our narrative, what we're selling them, and they have to believe in it. And if they don't give you the time and the energy to collaborate on a value map, if they don't understand how the technology they're potentially procuring via as it fits into that value map solves their company's problems that they are personally aligned with, you likely don't have a champion. So the value map's not a static place to capture information. You're going to start with the value map. You're going to hand it to your potential champion or whomever you're collaborating with, and you're going to see if they collaborate with you on that particular document or the digital format or whatever, email or however you do it. And then that exchange starts to evolve, and you're potentially building or earning a champion. So that champion comes back with valuable information. They come back with giving you access where a coach might not be able to give you access. So there's a difference between a coach and a champion. Champion has some political credibility. They have drive. They have an interest in succeeding with your technology and bringing you on that journey. So the value map is a great testing mechanism through the process, and it leads to establishing, building, and testing champions at the same time as making a more rich dialogue or a more rich narrative that weaves what their objectives are, what their problems are, what their obstacles technically are with your offerings, and therefore that travels. Highly credible. You don't feel like a salesperson when you approach it that way to the buyer. In fact, you're helping the buyer do their job, and that's what earns them, earns credibility for you as a seller or whatever role, seller, pre-seller, post-seller, technical or non. It all anchors around a value map, and then it leads to that champion process where we have to find them, we've got to test them, build them up, and we've got to test them. If they can't pitch the value map back to you, that's not going to travel quite as well. They're never going to do it as good as you. Eventually, I guess eventually they could. But the idea is you're helping them sell on your behalf by teaching them the value map and them contributing to it at the same time.
Yeah. So would you say in sales parlance, they have the juice inside the organization in order to influence the progress of the opportunity?
That's the difference between champion and a coach. Yeah, a coach doesn't have the juice. They might tell you some stuff, but a champion has the juice to take you down the proverbial hall, and introduce you to whoever's going to write the check. Potentially, you're an economic buyer, or the committee, or whomever else it might that might be involved in a complex selling cycle that takes 6 to 9 months or whatever it takes.
When people talk about champions, I often, when I'm witnessing these conversations, it seems one way. It's about what the champion, the way you build them, what they do on your behalf. But actually, in real life, a really great sales individual or a great pre-sales person, they're constantly championing the cause of the customer internally.
For them.
So there is so much, in relation to it being a bi-directional relationship,
Yeah.
and that's often lost. But it's quite difficult, I imagine, for a sales individual to represent the entirety of what their prospect or customer is doing. So the value map certainly helps.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you think that would make a great sales individual when they're looking internally and championing the cause of their customer?
Well, information sharing, right? So it's back to anything that we as professional sellers or as leaders helping professional sellers in complex SaaS tech. It's not transactional. You really are trying to build an enduring business relationship that produces outcomes for both parties, right? So the more you can do that, the more you can give them to help them do their job, the higher likelihood is that you're gonna make progress and mutually be rewarded. So I always think give, right. Meaning, they have a full-time job beyond buying anything. They're usually oversubscribed. They have thousands of other sellers trying to get their time. So our job is to make them successful and prepare them within their organization to succeed on our behalf. And they have to carry that forward. But we have the responsibility of coaching and developing and helping them do that. They don't have the time or the effort. So to me, that's the gift. We have to give that to them. And if the beacon or if the anchor for us is a value map, then that's an advantage that we have. Does that make sense?
It does. And when you talk about the way that's all aligned, it's a term that Joe used earlier, which is the mutual sequence of events. Now, I imagine that helps you create simplicity and transparency in terms of the way in which that collaboration occurs. Would that be right?
Yeah, I would think so. Well, let's talk about the relationship between the three, because we've all experienced it. The value map leads to maybe your initial touch or your dialogue with a potential champion or someone that we're trying to court and learn about, especially if we're new in an account.
Right.
If you're in an account over time, the value map and the person that you start with has to introduce you to others and other potential champions. So if you don't have multiple champions, you have you really have a very limited chance of winning. So the value map becomes a way for whom you're working with to introduce you to others. And then you have the chance to earn the right from others to learn if they're a champion, if they have the ability to be a champion, and if they're going to shepherd you through the process. And once you have multiple champions in an organization, which takes time, you're going to ask for something in return. And if you have a value map, you have champions, you have solution aligned. Now, in return, there are things that have to be done. You gotta validate the solution. You gotta maybe prove the solution out. You gotta pitch to many of the different business units or the stakeholders. Well, your champion has to help orchestrate all of that. So your mutual sequence of events now, so value map, champions, sequence of events, they all go together. And it's almost like a repetitive playbook where you're getting their hands on that process with you to help you validate the next steps and to give you commitments in return for the effort that you're providing. We make a mistake often, and Joe, you have an opinion on this. We don't, a lot of young reps and or young leaders think a sequence of events is, well, here are the 5 things I'm going to do next. Well, unless it's mutual and the client puts their hands on it, it's not valid. Then you might as well be living in a vacuum. You've talked about this often. The M is there for a reason. The mutuality of the sequence of events means the customer and the potential champions, they're the ones that are giving you dates that they have to then maintain the integrity of, and that improves their champion. They're tested on that front. That validates that they're a champion.
Right, no doubt, and that that mutual part of it is so important because the champion deck actually, the mutual sequence of events. If you want to think about it in a different way, it really is the sales process, and it's caught in a timeline. That means that you're talking about once you've done discovery, now you're going through technical alignment, proposal, and negotiations, and you're actually outlining that in a document with dates, with inflection points of go no go. The customer and the prospect have to participate in their own rescue, is a term I like to use. And what that really means is that you're setting dates and times and deadlines within the mutual sequence of events that the customer has articulated. It actually shows ownership. It has a person's name in there, not just champion. It has actually their name in there, and it gives you a right to press them on whether or not they are going to participate in the process. If a date goes by and some action item that they have ownership in has not been completed, now you've given them a right. You've received the right by them agreeing that the sequence of events should be adhered to. That you can follow up and say, hey, just want to follow up. We noticed that the legal process hasn't been completed, and as noted in the mutual sequence of events, that you said it would be completed by this date. Hey, let's talk about what the obstacles are and how we can overcome them together, because we also understand that this project is very important to you. And so using a sequence of events is actually a calendar base of deadlines that you can follow all the way through, and you can pull different departments in that you need, whether it is additional resources from product, whether it's technical resources, professional services, your leadership. You might need to trade stripes, if you will, to use an old term, of having the CRO speak with their CTO or something like that, where someone needs to speak directly from an executive level. So the mutual sequence of events captures all that. It's documented, and by the way, it's dynamic. It's not static. So that if a date does come and go, or if a different element is introduced into a project or a sales cycle, then you can actually put that in there. And by the way, so can the prospect. They can add in a new date, a new time. Hey, I just realized that the committee meeting has moved from this week to the following week. They update that, and then they own that. They have to follow up with that. So the mutual sequence of events is one of the most important documents that you have to develop early on within a sales cycle.
Yeah. So look, this is exciting. The 3 pieces or the 3 anchor points or pillars that we're talking about: the value map, value stack, value pyramid, whatever it may be, whatever you call it. The categories are very similar. It's a way you earn credibility and get in alignment with whom you're pursuing to sell to. Then you're using that to flesh out, do I have a champion? Can they contribute to the value map? Do they understand it? Do we both collaborate on making it right? Can they introduce me to other people? Do they then provide dates that they adhere to, and they rally other people around to make progress in the opportunity? Those 3 pillars are universal. Any methodology, any training, you name it, that's out there, those 3 pillars are universal. So you can take, from a most fundamental approach, if you did those 3 things well and you narrated your solution in solving the prospect or the customer's problem, you will advance your sale. You'll advance your opportunity. Those are the most important anchors, I think, in getting grounded in a real opportunity that is healthy and that is progressing over time towards we'll call being highly qualified. Otherwise, you're just hoping and praying. you're wishing for it to progress. You have to have those anchors. You have to earn the right. You have to have a champion that's tried and true and tested. They have to help you with the sequence of events, and you have to do it in a repetitive way so that they know exactly what's coming and that they don't get surprised. So I, I like to be repetitive because the customer makes jokes about it. If you start every meeting with your value map, eventually they go, here we go again. You're going to, I understand. You're going to read this back to me. I'm going to, no problem. I said, well, look, we have new people in the room. I want to make sure everybody's in the same place that you are in how we're progressing with what we're pursuing. And they always agree and let us do it. And the room's digital or it's in person or it's whatever, or it's over dinner. Hey, I can remember 4 or 5 categories for my narrative over dinner with a prospect. How much better is that? Those categories are about them. How much better is that than me giving them speeds and feeds about my product? They usually fill in the blanks with the technology and the capabilities that your technology has to solve their problem. Becomes a business conversation. It is endearing. It's not a sales pitch. Value map, champions, sequence of events, pillars in any they're agnostic. It doesn't care. They don't discriminate. Any methodology that's out there, they apply.
Often people just look at short-term actions.
Yeah.
That they might be responding or reacting to a prospect's need for a solution. They feel that they've got the best solution and they go in it feet first. But what we're discussing is that these pillars, and the reason why they're represented in a lot of best practices, is that they create what people often call long-term customer value.
Yeah.
And I think it's when the relationship between a supplier and a consumer become so intertwined, whereby each one is defining the existence of another, right? So, the best suppliers, of course, building solutions that the market wants and they need, and the market wants solutions that are really built around what they need to do today and tomorrow.
Yeah.
So I think what I'm hearing is that this is not just about opportunity or building accounts. It's actually about building businesses and a market, which is what all 3 of these things to point to.
Right, right. If you think about how the life cycle of having a foundational document like a value map and then establishing a mutual sequence of events, which the mutual sequence of events will change from campaign to campaign, even within the same organization. It gives you a strong foothold once you actually close that first opportunity to expand within the opportunity, because the challenges that you're addressing, they'll find the prospect and now a customer will find more reasons to expand your organization within their organization. So it also ties back to retention, because one of the biggest complaints I've ever heard, and consistently over my entire career, and it's long, is that salespeople don't listen. And I don't just mean like reps, I mean everybody does it. Like, we just want to talk about what we want to talk about. Well, when you have a value map and then you establish, of course, a mutual sequence of events during any campaign, it leads to a very positive customer experience, because it's within your organization. You've now tied together pre-sales, sales, customer success, account management, and renewals. They're all tied together. The customer doesn't have to keep explaining to every person along the way what they've talked with the previous person about. And by the way, same thing within their organization. Even though there are going to be people in the room at the prospect and customer that have heard the talk track before, it's going to reaffirm, by the way, something maybe they haven't thought about or happened between the 2 meetings. They're going to interject, but it's going to prove out that you've been listening to them. So their experience all the way along, they don't have to become their own advocate. They understand that you're the advocate for them, and the champion is the advocate, or the champions are the advocates when they're within their organization on behalf of their organization. So I can't say enough about how important that is to creating that whole closed loop experience where when they get to account management, or even if it's still handled by sales within an organization, they're able to expand. And by the way, the conversations for the renewals team aren't some sort of, hey, how can we do this? How can we do that? You know what it is? It's actually, typically done before it gets there. So the
Yeah.
renewals, if there's a separate renewals team, they're not doing much besides sending an invoice and how many more people can we add to your organization's licensing. So
Yeah.
that's kind of the key aspects when you talk about landing and adopting and expanding and renewing. It all ties together through documentation that you've talked with the customer about, they've communicated back to you, and you've confirmed with them and within your organization the importance of what you're shooting towards in a given engagement.
You hit on something super important, and you mentioned layer. So we'll go from layer back to the beginning of the sales campaign. Land, adopt, expand, renew. All of the roles that are involved in that process are the cross-functional go-to-market roles in the company we represent as sellers, as an example. Well, 80% of the data in the value map is reusable by all of those roles to serve the same customer. So therefore, that data should be harvested. It should be indexed. We should have it in a common place where the selling teams and the supporting teams over time have access to it, so that the customer is treated as if they're known. They get the treatment of being feeling like it's a bespoke, curated experience with them as a buyer or as a client over time. And what happens when you do that right is the selling team feels highly connected, the buying team feels highly served, and the outcomes on the metrics are ARR is strong. The customer gets value quickly. They buy more, which drives net retention, and then their experience is good, so the lifetime customer value increases. And the common pillars in that entire process are understanding your client and what they do and how to solve their problems via the value map, building multiple champions, finding them, getting them to understand the value map and contributing to it, testing them introducing you to more powerful people and giving you access, and that value map expanding, you having multiple champions, them doing that sequence of events, and then setting up the technical meetings, setting up the legal meetings, all of the things that a champion does on your behalf. Us collaborating and sharing and keeping all of that data as a selling entity or as someone selling to the prospect makes the experience over time for them way different than if it's transactional, meaning a call here and there, and then, hey, do you have budget, and then maybe we get a small transaction. You don't get multi-million-dollar transactions that way. Multi-million-dollar transactions are curated, are relationship based. They have valid business cases. They have multiple champions. They're aligned to corporate objectives, strategies, and initiatives, and they have commitments in the sequence of events. But most importantly, all of that is related to the proposal, or what we used to call champion sell deck, or a proposal or a client book. That's the ultimate asset that travels when you're not there, with all of those people that have contributed to it, and they see their contributions, so they sell on your behalf organically. It's
Yeah.
one big process.
Yeah, and I would even argue that, or assert at minimum, that this isn't something only for large enterprises with multi-million-dollar opportunities. This is really something that you want to engage with across your entire go-to-market team, not just sales, but everyone's involved, including marketing and whatnot. And even when the opportunities aren't multi-million-dollar deals, there are people inside your organization that will be multi-million-dollar sellers at someday, or will help you grow because there's a large volume of them running transactions that they may lose track of if they have 10, 15 deals a quarter or a month going on at the same time, you want to make sure that you have some iteration of a value map of a mutual sequence of events so that the opportunities move forward, and you're able to forecast against those and understand them because you have an in-depth understanding of how an opportunity works. But also that mid-market customer that is, they're counting pennies, right? They're not necessarily public companies with large reserves of cash to spend on it. That means that the salesperson and their team, or them as an individual and their champion, they understand that they're still mutually aligned, and no matter what, even though this prospect might not be spending millions of dollars with that business, they're still just as important as any other customer within that organization. And having documentation that travels, hopefully it's digitized, so that you don't run into version control. You want to make sure it's operationalized and digitized. That information travels back and forth between that customer and then that sales rep.
Yeah. So I always start to think of how we weave all of this together and create a thread, a steel thread that goes through it. So there's ICP, ideal customer profile. Then there's personas, and then we're trying to go navigate an account and solve to a corporate a strategy, an objective, a strategy, and an initiative. Find problems that our technology aligns to, build multiple champions that can agree and help you with your value map in those categories. Now you're in your sales process and you're running a sales campaign or a playbook based on a certain product. It's all the same. Like that whole process, building and maturing through a value map, through champions, through a sequence of events, all that is all threaded, reusable, and it has different levels of maturity depending, to your point, Joe, on the segment that you're in. If you're commercial or mid-market, there's a lightweight way to do the same exact things. If you're a big enterprise and selling multi-year, multi-million dollars, you have to be way deeper and more and have way more data and a deeper understanding. You might have less accounts in running that type of campaign, but the principles are the same. ICP, the persona, the campaign you're running, your sales process and your playbook, the value map, champion, sequence of events, all steel threading into a proposal with your solution woven through it. That's what makes it work. You can't do it any other way. You're just praying, hoping and praying. You have to have the consistent repeatability so your customer and prospect knows I'm getting served really valuable information. They're helping me sell internally. They don't know how to sell internally. That's not their job. Our job is to help them sell internally by doing this.
Yeah, I think also this is a really great discussion because you're mentioning about the market segments and the size of the organizations and the fact that value map, mutual sequence of events, champions, these are rooted in the value of adoption of a technology within a particular customer.
That's right.
It's not about how much that technology costs. And I think often, and I've seen this, under the banner of product-led growth and product-led selling, certain organizations, might feel that the product sells itself. And it might, but it's a big risk to take because there's two sides to this story.
Yeah.
When the consumer is buying, they still need to run that solution through IT. There's people that are going to use it. It needs to go into their business processes. It gets integrated within the wider fabric of the data they have in their business. So the product never really sells itself as far as the customers are concerned. They need the help of a value map, mutual sequence of events, and a champion that actually understands the reason why this product is useful to them, right? So I think it can get forgotten in the quest to do things quicker. So I really like that discussion just now.
Now, from a leadership perspective, let's take it just a little different perspective. The same pillars. I want my contributors rallying around being very good at a value map, very good at finding, testing, building champions, very good at sequence of events. I might collaborate with my solution engineer on aligning technology to those. Usually every company that's buying is solving to, hey, can I go faster? Can I reduce risk? Can I reduce cost? Like all of this starts to then blend into a common narrative. Why then, if I'm a sales leader on a forecast call, do I only ask for a date and a value. That's what a junior leader does. A date and a value. That's what a junior seller does. Hey, I'll close this March 31. It's 180K. Okay, tell me more about that. Well, process is covered. I'm doing it. I got it. Well, do you have the value map? Because the value map tells us how healthy the relationship with the selling process is. No, I didn't get that knocked out. Well, then how do you know you have a champion? Did they contribute with you on solving the problem, and did they agree and introduce you to the economic buyer? No, didn't do that. But I do have legals looking at the contract. It's not a forecastable opportunity. You have to have the anchors. The leader then gets a way to triangulate on the opportunity. The value and the timing are directly related to the health of the pillars. The value map, and if the client contributed to it, validated it, expanded it, and made it their own. Did they earn themselves the right to be called a champion? Or did we test them and build them up enough and give them enough to be a champion? Did they agree and design a mutual sequence of events and then deliver on that? Well, those are health elements that influence the progress of the opportunity, and they triangulate with the value. Therefore, those should be required in every forecast script that is used to do forecast reviews on a weekly, on a monthly, or on a quarterly basis. It's all the same. The anchors are the same. The health of the business, the health of the opportunity, the health of the seller and their leader rally around the pillars of a value map, a champion, a sequence of events, aligning to it, and ensuring you get collaboration back and forth from those that we're pursuing. Otherwise, you can't call an opportunity. You can't forecast it. I don't know how you would depend on it. If I'm a sales leader, the integrity of that process, all the way up the org, from CRO to GO to director to first line, that narrative is the same. If the integrity of that narrative is not maintained at every level, those are table stakes. You can't forecast accurately. You can't grow a business. You can't predictably run a business without that.
Right, and think about when that has been operationalized over the time in your past, and as you go into organizations and kind of galvanize the workforce. When you think about that, think of the comfort level that we all feel when you sit down and you realize that everyone is buttoned up and they have those things in line. You talk about their forecast, and you talk about a given opportunity, the value map. They've already got it, and they're like, hey, it's done. We're following the process. And by the way, mutual sequence of events, where are we now? Okay, they haven't missed a date. And so, us as sales leaders and business leaders in general, that bead of sweat that we can all receive towards the end of the quarter when that anchor deal is completely buttoned up, and instead of just sitting there saying, oh boy, I hope this one comes in, because we know that that axiom is hope is not a strategy, right? And so when this is all put on paper, it's validated and documented, the sense of relief that we receive as sales leaders and go-to-market leaders in general is great.
Yeah, absolutely.
So one of the things he said is getting good at this process, right? Before you get into a review or before you get into a customer meeting. I fondly remember looking at really good sales leaders that were around me and trying to emulate them, but without the benefit of their wisdom, and ending up in some embarrassing reviews and embarrassing customer meetings. I think it's probably happened to us all. What advice can you give to folks out there on how they can get good at this process? Because it does seem quite complicated to the people that are just joining this profession of selling.
Don't be afraid to fail. Honestly, it's the safest way to sell. So while it sounds complex, it requires a little bit of research and some strong business acumen. It's you as a person, right? So that you become a business associate to the prospect and the customer rather than a salesperson, and that to me is the safest thing that you can do. I've had value maps pushed back to me or not collaborated on, and all that means is I move to the next person and try to earn credibility with them. It's very much a process that you do have to fail at a number of times until you get good at it. And it's young sellers, be willing to fail and get uncomfortable doing it. It's totally okay. I've had a business case thrown back at me by my ultimate champion before because I didn't ask him for permission to do the business case process with his direct reports. And so then I got into a meeting and he threw the business case back and we had to start over. When I thought it was a lay down, and what ended up happening is he felt disrespected. So I had earned trust all this time. Then I went and ran a business case process and expected him to sign off on it without him knowing I was doing it. That was a learning experience. This is 20 years ago. I'll never do that again. If I'm running a business case, I'm getting my ultimate champion's buy-off on the business case. So failures are part of what this profession is all about. Like, it's painful, but how I think has gotten better, the professional in general, is in the old days it was abusive if you didn't do your job. Like it was punitive. Today we're a little more. I think I wouldn't say we're soft. Discipline is extremely important today, but how we convey that you have to be disciplined is more human.
Yeah, I would say it's we're far more collaborative, realizing I think over time, and I think all three of us have been around during those days, and I think that we realize is that the onus and the ownership on a failure or a success is just as much on the go-to-market leader as it is on the individual contributor. And if an individual contributor fails, I take that as a personal failure nowadays. And I think that's something we've all learned over our career is that you win and lose as a village, right? And so you want to make sure that the individuals that are in your organization are adhering to a process that you establish within the organization, right? And the best and the brightest will 100% get on board and follow that earlier. And even your folks that are trying to ramp up and you want to compress that ramp time and get them on board and moving up and being top sellers, they understand that a repeatable, operationalized sales process is very important to their success. So we owe it to our organization and our people to make sure that that's in place. And if it isn't in place and people are failing, then the only person you have to blame is the person in the mirror.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
Could not agree more. And it travels, by the way. So how many things, if you were to think sales, pre-sales, post-sales, right, and technical sales, how many things do those roles have to do and remember and execute daily between the customers they're serving, the leads or whatever they're following up on, the events they have to go to, and the internal administration by their leaders or their different organizations that don't necessarily respect go-to-market as the most difficult job in the business because they get punched in the stomach every day. Like someone's saying no, someone's pushing the value map back. A champion is not a champion. They made that mistake. It's so complex that anchoring on things that travel, that we call it the cross-section of value. Sales, pre-sales, technical sales, customer, sales process, sales playbook. I don't know how many layers there are. That cross-section is the most efficient thing that we can think about. The value map meets us there. The champion process meets us there. The sequence of events meets us there, and all of the data related with all of those conversations and those roles and the customer and the process, it all overlaps. That's why these are the anchors, and it's the anchors that we should coach to. So if you have the skill to do a value map and learn it and do it really well, that's a leading indicator to success. If you're not willing to do that, and I'm running my organization that way, you have a defensible reason to remove that person. They don't have the willingness to follow a proven process and method that we're using as our corporate entity. Skill, will maps to these pillars, and it becomes an anchor point for how you run a business as a leadership team. It's a simpler way to think about life.
You know, Bart, you mentioned something about coaching, right? Which is so important in this because you said you should have a fear. You shouldn't be worried about failing. You should have a fear to fail.
Yeah.
should be brave. And I think what I've had in my career is when my sales leader or general manager has given me some coaching in situ,
Yeah.
that's really helped. I'll give you an example. Value map. I wanted to build out a value map with a champion who has done this with other suppliers and other technologies for years. And I got a bit of feedback, which was, why don't you ask your champion whether they've got a value map they can share with you
Yeah.
on a similar technology, right? And actually, the champion shared with me a value map on which was very similar to what I was proposing for exactly the same project, because the champion didn't feel that the supplier owned that value map
Yeah.
because he put his fingerprints on it.
It was
And
his.
so I got a real good acceleration to my sale. But if my sales leader hadn't told me to be brave or to ask the question, I never would have got it.
Yeah. Yeah. This is so the beauty of this conversation is it travels and applies. These principles apply everywhere, no matter what. And there becomes very specific techniques in how you use the pillars, the value map, champions, sequence of events, and everything that's wrapped around those as you collaborate as a team. There's unique techniques that everybody has that work. That you just have to figure out the technique that's yours, that works for you, that's most comfortable. And then you repeat it over and over and over until you become extremely good at that skill. And we all have people in our networks that we collaborate with that are absolutely fanatical about their process. Joe is a sequence of, I already know, Joe's a mutual sequence of events guy. Like at the end of every call, you're not getting off the call unless you're committing to a date for an objective to be done. And if it's not done, he's coming after you. I'm a value map guy, right? I need the guiding principles of the value map, value stack, value pyramid to have an intelligent conversation through my campaign. For me, that's a comfort. It's a grounding mechanism. I can sound intelligent. I can position technology professionally, and I can give it as a service. I can provide this back to my prospect and my customer. Anthony Palladino, the best champion guy I've ever known in my career. I remember back at BMC Software, he did a presentation on champions. Like, stood up in the front of the room. I can when I have a good champion, I can smell the opportunity progressing when I'm not there. I can feel it. And I was like, okay, I get it.
Awesome discussion, Prakash. That was a great story. Appreciated Bart wrapping it up there and jumping off. And thank you both for a spirited discussion and thinking way back to when. I wish I had some of the stuff when I was a new rep rather than like them handing me a phone book and saying, go get him, Tiger. I wish I understood this process earlier on, but it's now it's available and it's out there for everyone to leverage. But thank you for hosting us.
So Bart, Joe, thank you so much for that discussion. You know, I take away 3 really important points there. The value map, the sequence of events, and building champions are so important, irrespective of what you're selling. It might be low value to you as a supplier, but to your consumer, it's very high value. And those things are really important in order to have the successful adoption of a technology for that customer. The second thing is it's all about people. It's making sure that you have the confidence, that you're brave in disclosing any weaknesses that might be on your side, your customer disclosing it on their side, and working together to build the strongest relationship and solution possible through these assets that help you get that collective understanding. And the third is that this is a complex task. Sharing the data, orchestrating your go-to-market team, this is what creates success, and it's a task that you need to be on daily. The best account executives and sales reps will organize and orchestrate the movements of the entire go-to-market team, the understanding that they have with the prospect or customer, share the data and make sure that the interests of the customer are championed in their organization, and that the customer also feels that they can champion what the supplier is doing for them and the best interests of that in their company. So thank you for that chat. It was a great discussion. Speak soon.